Welcome to the Estate of Reality podcast. Join two of the smartest people in real estate as they talk about the reality of today's real estate world. It's nothing like TV. This is the real world. If you are planning to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, or if you are a real estate agent, this podcast is for you. Your hosts are Melissa Haley, broker for North Texas Top Team and CEO of Agent Advantage Coaching and Training, as well as Stephen Etzel, real estate broker, instructor, and owner of Stephen Etzel Real Estate Consulting. Join them as they talk about all things real estate. Subscribe today to catch all of the episodes.
Well, welcome everybody. I am Melissa Haley, the CEO of Agent Advantage Coaching and Training and broker with the North Texas Top Team Realtors. I have with me a couple of folks today. Stephen Etzel, say hey and tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm Steve Etzel. I'm from Northern Texas as well, and I own a brokerage. I also own a mortgage company. I also have an insurance company. We're called the Etzel Group. So if anybody has any questions, I always tell every episode, give us a call. So I'm glad to be here today. Today's going to be an exciting episode.
That it will be, because today we have a special guest. It's going to be so great. We have Clayton Bailey here with Green Scene Home Inspections. Thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
So third generation inspector, and I've been in business almost 15 years. We've done almost 10,000 houses, and I dress like an alarmist inspector, but we are not alarmist inspectors. So I always just want to be clear, like I always wear crazy things to get people's marketing attention, but we are not alarmist inspectors. We just dress like that. And my guys don't even wear this outfit like out in the field. So
he's like, if you see the guy in the crazy green outfit, it might be me, right?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. You have all the great St. Patrick's Day outfits is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's my favorite holiday, because I can wear all the green outfits for sure. It makes it a lot of fun.
Being in real estate, not being an alarming inspector is good news. That's all I'm saying.
It is good news. Absolutely. And we're not going to forget your name, Green Scene. You're wearing the green alarming outfit.
Yeah.
Well, so I would love to ask you the first question to just kind of kick things off, because, home inspection goes right along with our real estate stuff. And, Stephen and I are helping buyers and sellers, buy and sell houses. And we're telling folks you need to get a home inspection. But what does a home inspector actually do? What are you guys inspecting? What's happening out there?
Yeah, no, great question. So it's always, everybody expects us to sort of go in and bless the house, and then when people move in, it's going to be perfect forever. And that's not exactly how it works. So we're held by a standards of practice where we have to do a minimum set things that are set by the state. Of course, good inspectors can go above and beyond that, which is, what we do. But we don't necessarily cut open walls to look inside to make sure that it's okay. So we can't be destructive in any way. So we can just look at what we can see at the time of the inspection. And I call it kind of putting the house through a Super Bowl test. So you're about to have a big Super Bowl party, and you're going to have a bunch of people over, and you turn all the water on, turn all the cold water, the hot water, turn the oven on, run the dishwasher, run in the showers, the bathtubs, and sort of running everything all at once to try to see if something's going to fail or something's going to go wrong. And so we kind of have a very systematic way of going around the house. So we make what I call a triple double. So we go around the house 3 times on the outside and 3 times on the inside. We're checking everything from the floor to the ceiling. Kind of we do a bottom to top kind of approach. So we're everything that's encompassing. So from the shingles all the way down to the foundation is what we're checking out.
Awesome.
Do you also do commercial as well, or just residential?
We do commercial as well. So like we're doing a 38 plex in Houston here this upcoming week. So I've done dentist's office or doctor's office. I've done strip malls. I've done schools, churches, kind of the whole gamut. It's a different type of form than we fill it out on. But on a commercial, you either want to know just like, hey, what am I getting into? Because I need to beat them up on price and these things are broken. 9 times out of 10, people that are buying commercial want to know, what's my future expenses going to be? Like, when is this boiler going to go out, or when is this chill tower going to go out, and how much is that going to be to cost to replace?
So no Super Bowl parties at the church? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Just checking.
After the service is over. After the service is
Oh, okay. Yeah. After church. That's right.
So what happens if you find something? Is there something that you're going to do, like fix it, or what are you going to do? Are you going to give recommendations, or can you give us a list of people that can fix it, or how's that work?
So what we do is we kind of go through the whole thing. We're not necessarily going to fix the things because it's not our stuff, but we're going to report on, hey, this sink is leaking and it's leaking into the cabinet, and we turned it off, we didn't run it anymore, but you need to get a hold of a licensed certified professional plumber to come out and fix that and look at that. So definitely refer it to the specialist, defer that to the specialist to then come in and give further cost evaluations and estimates.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Last podcast, Stephen and I spent a lot of time talking about the contract and all the new changes in the contract. And there were some recent changes about things that are being done, right? Because like you said, you're going to just tell people this is something that's wrong, but the buyer might ask the seller to fix something. And if they do get that thing fixed, the contract's really specific about what that needs to look like, and providing receipts and some things like that we just covered last go round. So yeah, important stuff.
Yeah.
So what happens if the seller, if the buyer says, oh my gosh, there's this thing, it's leaking, and the buyer says, hey seller, I want you to fix it. I mean, is the seller required to? I mean, I guess that's maybe a better discussion for Stephen. Is the seller required to make any repairs?
Well, under the contract 7D, it says as is present conditions. So you can negotiate all you want, but the bottom line is, it's like I tell people, quote unquote, every sale is as is. I mean, if you think about it, it's up to them what they want to do. But I think a lot of people, good point, don't even know they can negotiate it.
Yeah.
And so, especially with the world we just came out of in real estate, I believe that, everybody's offering overpriced. You got multiple offers. So everybody's getting a little scared right now. I don't want to ask because they won't accept my offer. But with the market changing, I think it's becoming more open to where people are more, I should say, flexible to not only fix things, which is good, but also a lot of the loan programs are starting to get more acceptable as well, like FHA, VA, and so on, because closing costs are being paid. So I don't think people should be afraid to ask for things to be fixed.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I do think it's important for real estate agents to know how to ask.
Absolutely.
Right? And Clayton, how long is the report that you would normally give to a buyer after they get the home inspection?
Yeah, no, great question. So like a average, 2,000 square foot home, just average aged home, our reports are going to be anywhere from 23 to 34 pages, just somewhere in there. The older the house is, kind of the more problems there are, the longer the report's going to be. It tends to be the newer the house, the shorter the report, because there's not as much going on. We're held by today's current building standards as inspectors, so we have to look at what code updates just changed, and then we've got energy codes that just changed in 2021. We've got electrical codes that just changed in 2021 that we now are kind of have to, even though it's a 1950s house or something, we still have to talk about it as it's today's codes and updates and stuff. So great question. When you go into, well, what are they required to fix? It's like, well, anything that you guys negotiate over is what it is. And most agents are going to say, if it's a safety issue, if it's broken, or if it's causing damage, okay, well, those are the three areas we really need to talk about. Everything else is just kind of an as-built condition, right?
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of those too. I think a lot of things people are like, they could be an insurance issue too, or a warranty issue. It's like your water heater or something, it could still be under warranty. So that's why I tell people, don't be afraid to ask, because it might be covered somewhere else. It might not come out of pocket. You never know.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. If they've got a warranty or something, they can just put in a claim. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, I get this question all the time. I've always wanted to know this. How long do these inspections actually last? I mean, are they that day, or do they go on for the next 10 years, or how do they work?
Now, are you saying like to perform the inspection or?
No, to look back, like if you gave us an inspection, how long is that inspection, or how long is that inspector liable for? Is it 2 years, 5 years, 1 year?
1 year. 1 year. So
1
the
year.
way that the way that the contracts are written from the state, it's we're on the hook for 1 year from the time of the inspection.
Yeah,
Great
that you have
question. A
to
lot of
stand
this-
behind your word, so to speak.
Yeah. So, and like Stephen was just mentioning the the market shifting and the market changing, and we felt that on our end because it was all the people that had purchased a house 6 months ago that paid 100 grand over, 40 grand over. They were like, I don't care what's wrong with the house. Like you can tell me and give me this report. I don't care. I know you got an $8,000 sewer line problem, but there was 40 other people that wanted this house and we won, we got it, right? But then they moved in and then the market changed and then they're like, oh, wait a minute, there's this sewer line problem. And then they get upset and call and they're like, hey, this sewer lines, I had a plumber out here and he said that this should have been caught in the inspection. I'm like, well, we did, it was on page 12. I'm looking at it right here. Did you guys negotiate that over that, during your time? It's like, well, no, my agent said we can't negotiate over anything because we got the house. And I'm like, so that was a big, that's when I noticed as an owner of a company, is like people were getting that sort of buyer's remorse. And it was the people that had purchased the house, 6 months, 8 months previous to that.
They'd also said like this, oh, don't worry about it, you're getting a home service contract. That's
Yeah.
my answer. Oh, don't worry about what the inspection says. We're gonna get a home service contract. That'll fix everything. That's a pre-existing problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be a pre-existing issue and not covered at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of misconception going on out there, and unfortunately, people weren't educated enough to say, "Hey, look, we need to get these problems fixed. No matter if you're going to lose on a bid, on a deal, I should say, or an offer, whatever it is, we still need to take care of our clients." I think that was one of the biggest issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same thing like today, even, right? Because you're talking about the shift in the market, and there were agents that have been around there are currently today realtors who have been in the business for 10 or 15 years, and they are even having to be reminded, oh, don't forget, we can now ask for those things and not feel like, we're going to lose out on something because we didn't, because we had to pay so much money over or whatever. I think if you paid so much money over, you should have been asking the seller to fix those things because you paid
Exactly.
so much over.
Or at least meet halfway on something.
Yeah, you still had that right, and the seller didn't have the right to terminate on you.
Well, I've had people say, well, we had to waive off the inspection to get the deal. That's like waiving off an appraisal. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well,
So why would you waive off an appraisal? You're going to be living in this house for who knows, right? 5, 10, 15 years. Don't you want to know if it's going to be standing in the next 5, 15 years? And so me personally, I suggest you never waive off an appraisal or an inspection. That's what we should be doing. And I believe that's giving the most fiduciary duties too. And unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformed people out there. Absolutely. And I'm just going off what Melissa was saying. Half the people didn't even know they could do it.
Yeah, you didn't know they could do it, or you didn't feel like you could. But y'all, at the time is back. Ask the sellers for the repairs. But I will say this, and I don't know if you're seeing it out there at all, either one of you guys, but we are getting offers on our listings, and then we're getting under contract, and then agents are getting a home inspection report, and they're sending me, what did Clayton just say? The average is like 15 pages, 20 pages. They're sending me this 20-page report, and they're just like, here's everything that's wrong with it, fix it all. Well, that's not really a repair request either, because the inspection report doesn't say this is what you got to do to fix it. The inspection report says there's water behind the cabinets. Okay, well, thanks for telling me. What do you want me to do about it? I need a little more information as a seller and as a listing agent to be able to respond back to a buyer or a buyer's agent on, well, what do you want me to do about the water behind the cabinets?
That's a wish list.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Doesn't make sense.
I think realtors that just got into the business within the last, year or two, maybe they just haven't been through this experience yet.
Yeah.
I think it would be important to note, here's the whole inspection report. This is the thing that concerns my buyer. So then the request to the seller is, we want the seller to do this, whatever this is. We want them to have the air conditioner serviced, or we want them to fix a drain line, or we want them to tell me what you want. And sure, give me the home inspection report as backup. Happy to provide that, to my seller. Now, sellers don't usually want it, but you want to give it to me, awesome. Because it helps me to have better direction as to why you want it fixed. But I need really the request to be, what do you want me to fix? I think it's
That's
important.
like saying, I want the house broom swept. Okay. I mean, how's that going to show up? You know, I mean, what's broom swept mean? You know, let's be specific on this. You know, I mean, we got to be more specific on what we're doing. Then they get upset.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's one of my biggest, I should say, pet peeves when it comes to the inspector. They say the whole thing and say, yeah, we need this done. Need what done? The whole thing. Well, the whole thing means we got to reconstruct the whole house. That doesn't make any sense to me. And so, plus, I don't even want to see the inspection report, to be honest with you, because once I see it and I'm representing the seller, I got to tell the seller.
And now the seller's got to.
I'm on notice, because why? That's what the Trek rules say. That also is what our articles say. Once we know, what do we have to do? Disclose. And so next thing you know, I got to tell the seller's going to get all kinds of fired up. And then next thing you know, we got to write an update to the seller's disclosure notice. And then on top of that, it just turns out to be a whirlwind of problems. And then the seller's going to say, well, we're never going to be able to sell this house. Well, yeah, you will. But on the flip side of it, you only have to disclose material facts, not because, you know, you don't have to disclose that there's a little chip in the wall, but a material fact, you know, that's the house is falling down. You might want to disclose that. But I'm saying it's not as extreme as they think it is. So you got to talk them off the ledge. It just causes real issues.
Yeah.
Just an
Agreed.
overall circle of madness. And unfortunately,
I think there's agents that what Melissa was saying was that, you know, you've got agents that are just new and they don't know any better.
Yeah.
That they're just like, I don't know, fix it all. Yay. Isn't that cute? And then you've got agents that are trying to play hardball, and they're just trying to say, I know I'm going to slam you with this and you have to disclose it. And so then they feel like they're kind of putting those teeth in and grabbing on and doing the deal. I think when you deal with really good agents, I think good agents are just kind of copying certain lines out of the report and saying, hey, here's what we would like to have done. Here's what we would like to see. But it goes back to, you know, we have to go by today's current building codes and standards. But if it's something that's broken, if it's something that's causing damage, or if it's a safety issue, okay, well, we need to talk about that, because that's an insurance ability type of thing, because the insurance company is not going to insure something that's, you know, somewhere something's causing damage to the house. So that's the main things that I think people should pay attention to. And then in this market shift, it's like in October, we had, you know, we pulled up my whole team together and I said, look, we've been in a honeymoon period for 3 to 4 years where you guys have been lucky because people haven't cared about the home inspection report. They just want to know, what are the 3 big things? Like, we'll talk about that. And if it's anything other than that, I don't care. Well, now people are back in that mentality that they were in 2008, 2009. We're like, hey, the pull string on the closet light is broken. I want that fixed. It's like, okay, like,
Yeah.
they're
I don't
starting to pay attention.
Here's another fun thing. As a real estate professional, don't try to explain what the inspector said on the inspection report to your client. Have them call the inspector. Do you agree with that, Clayton?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times they try to explain something. They're like, oh, this is the problem. You have no idea what the problem is. It's out of your area's expertise. And they could just be saying, hey, it needs a light bulb, you know what I'm saying? But on the flip side, we need the whole light fixture fixed because the roof is falling in. And so, you know, it goes from one extreme to the next. So rely on the professionals, not just try to work through it, or else that also turns out to be some madness.
Absolutely.
And you don't want the whole deal to fall apart because I didn't want to fix the pull string in the closet light.
Exactly. That's insane.
But sometimes I agree. Sometimes people just aren't thinking. They're just like, I'm going to get it all for my client because that's my job. But that's not the job. The job is to look out for their, you know, best interest. And sometimes their best interest is to get to closing, right? Yeah. But with all the things that need to be handled up on, like Clayton was saying, like safety stuff or whatever. But I think sometimes buyers just don't know. So here's my question to you, Clayton, about helping the buyer be educated. Is it a good idea for a buyer to come to the home inspection? Like while the home inspector's in the home, looking at all the things and writing down all the things on his report, is it a good idea for the buyer to be there?
So great question. I love that. We actually love it when the buyers attend. Our office is, when as soon as they book the inspection, they say, hey, we're going to run from this time. We're about an hour and a half for every 1,000 square feet. But if you could show up towards the end of the inspection, that's the best thing, because we're going to be there for 3.5, 4 hours. And so what I have found is that if they're there the whole time, every time the inspector takes a picture, their anxiety level just goes higher and higher and higher. And so then by the end of the inspection, they're just like, ah! They're freaking out. But come at the end, and then the inspector's gonna, every picture that he's taken, he's gonna show you that and kind of go over it with you and that kind of fun stuff. So highly encourage buyers to show up at the end, because this is the time for us to introduce you to your future home. This is how things work in this house. Let me show you this over here. When people don't show up, it's just that personal connection is lost, and it just becomes more like, well, I don't know, I wasn't there. And so now I'm relying upon third-party information from somebody else after they've, came back after the fact, and then it's too late. So definitely encourage them to show up.
Here's a
And that's
follow-up for you.
that's
How
like
about
what
the-
Stephen was saying. Then they're like calling their realtor, and their realtor's trying to tell them what all the things mean, and that's not good.
Yeah.
Should the agent be there? What do you think?
The buyer's agent or the seller's
Either
agent?
one, buyer or seller's agent?
So that's also a good question. So when I teach, I teach agents, and so there's some brokerages when I teach in their office that some brokers don't allow their agents to show up to the inspection, because they feel like, well, if you're there and now you're liable for that. Where if you don't show up, then you don't know, and then you're not liable. So I personally believe that good agents should show up. I think that a good agent is there sort of with the notepad, kind of behind the inspector when the inspector's reviewing everything, and they're kind of just going over the highlights of everything that's happening. And also an agent's job to me is, it's the big F word in real estate, fiduciary responsibility. You've got to have their financial back, but also it's the kind of therapy part, because you as an agent know your client, and when they start to freak out and get weird, then you can kind of like, okay, this isn't that. I know you just saw 160 pictures and there you saw all the bad stuff, but let's just, he's got to do that. That's his job. Now let's just talk about, the things that are broken, the things that are not safe, and the things that, are causing damage. And this is the notes that I took there. So I think good agents should show up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important for the buyer's agent to hear what the inspector is telling the buyer too, so that when the buyer does call them later and they're like, what did Clayton say about the blah, blah, blah? Yeah. Yeah. It's like just getting that other person to kind of hear the rest of it. I think it's important.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. But so his other question that Stephen asked you a second ago was, he said, well, what about the listing agent? But I would like to know, like, what about the seller? Do you want the seller to be home? Because it sounds like if the buyer's getting panicked every time you're snapping a picture, the seller's probably getting twice as panicked.
Yeah.
When you're taking a picture. So how does that go down?
You're exactly right. So every time we snap a picture, they get very defensive, or, we have a routine where we go and we turn on every light switch, we turn on every ceiling fan, we're running water, we're running sinks and stuff like that. And the sellers they just can't, it's force of habit. They'll come and they'll turn the light off, or they'll turn the water off. And you're like, I have a job to do. I'm trying to do my job here. Please let me do it. And so kind of the way I train my guys, and this is why a good agent preps their client to tell their sellers, please don't be there. So we'll actually pump the seller for information, like, hey, what bad stuff can you tell me? Have you had foundation work? Have you had any plumbing issues? How old is your roof? And we start grilling the seller about all this stuff. And either they're going to open book like, oh yeah, we had foundation work, we had this thing over here, or, and the listing agent's like, oh my God, why did you say that to him? Right? Well, it's like, well, you're here. I'm going to ask you, I want to know, how well are you maintaining your house? And so once we start asking those questions to sellers, they're like, I think I'm going to go. I'll be back. What time are you going to be done? We'll go ahead and get on out of here.
Well, yeah, because that's a really good point. Like, who do you work for as the inspector?
I'm for the buyer.
The buyer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good point.
I got another rumor question for you. I
Yeah.
got this the other day. Are the inspections copywritten?
Are the inspections copyrighted?
Ooh.
So great question. So in the contracts, the way that they are written, the client, it's kind of like attorney-client privilege, right? Or doctor-client privilege. Whoever pays me, that's who owns the information, right? So if I have written a report within our agreements, there's a little verbiage that says, by signing this agreement, you agree that your are going to allow us to share this to your agent and your agent only. So that's the only person we're going to share that report with. There's some inspectors though that they won't even share their inspection report with their buyer's agent. They only give it to the buyer, and then whatever the buyer does with it after that, that's on them. They're the ones that have paid for that product. Great question though. But there's no like copyright or trademarked or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes through the back end. What we have to do with, hey, you got the inspection done. Well, you had an inspection. You have to give us a copy. No, we don't. You know what I mean? So it depends on what seller's disclosure notice you use. Even then, the law doesn't say we have to get back. So.
Yeah, and I've had some clients that say they've called me and said specifically, do not give a copy to my agent. And I always think that's a little weird, because it's like, man, you don't even trust your agent to read it. But that's when I know I'm dealing with the crazy, because it's like something went wrong, something went sideways, and they don't want their agent to see the home inspection report. That means like, I'm kind of like red alert, like I'm on the lookout for like what happens. I'm kind of very cautious about that one.
Well, what if the buyer doesn't have an agent? I mean, technically the buyer could be unrepresented or be in an intermediary situation where the same agent is doing both sides of the deal, which is not common, but could happen.
Yeah.
I mean, then there's a whole nother topic that comes up then, because once the listing agent knows information and they've got to convey that to their seller versus, I mean, I don't know, that could just open up a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, agents that do that fine line where they're working both sides of the transaction, I think it's not a smart move to do, because they've got to, how do you have fiduciary responsibility to both sides? You really you can't at the end of the day. For us, when we don't have if there's not an agent representing a person, we have to kind of put on that realtor hat and say, okay, well, I'm not an agent. I'm not your agent. I've been doing this long enough. I know what agents they're supposed to be doing. And so, what you need to do is take this report and kind of go through it with the fine tooth comb. And you've got, X amount of time until your option period is up. And then you can't ask for anything. So during this option period, that's when you need to come out and get the AC guy or the plumber or the roofer to come give you those cost estimates. And we can kind of coach people through that, but it just makes our job even that much harder, because we're trying to be a realtor and we're not a realtor. We're just the inspector. But the buyer, if they don't know, then they're just like, I don't know, I'm just doing this because it's cheaper. Like,
well, here's the thing too, as a broker, we can, as a broker myself, it's always intermediary with appointments. I mean, no matter what, right? Because you want to give them that representation. But on the flip side of it, they can ask for repairs all the way to the day of closing. So it's not during the option period only. So they can't even, the option period is just right to back out for any reason. You want to get in, something negotiated, because if you had to back out. But on the flip side, telling somebody to look through that inspection report is probably the best thing they could possibly do, so they understand what they're actually looking at. I think a lot of times why agents, like what you were saying, I don't want to show my agent. One of the biggest things that I teach in class, and I wish we all could really understand this, an agent works for the client, not the client works for the agent. So when you start flipping that around right there, that's when I think it starts going upside down on you, Clayton.
Yeah.
And you can tell, you can tell, like, oh boy, this person's telling me what, this person doesn't know what they're doing. They're taking control of things and they're not listening to what I'm saying. It's true. A lot of times agents don't listen to what the principal is saying. And that's, obviously a fiduciary, like you said, the F word, that's a violation too, by the way. We got to listen to our clients. Obey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so, all right. So let's go back to that buyer who just got the home inspection done and they were good. They came at the end, they followed your advice and they came at the end and the home inspector's like, here's all the things and, maybe pointing them out. Let me walk you over here and show you this or that. What happens if an issue is discovered? I mean, what if they want you to fix it? Can you fix it?
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun. Can the home inspector make a repair for the buyer right then?
No, like if it's something, here's the deal. Like if it's something of safety, like if mortal harm can come of the occupants of the house, right? Then I am obligated to go to the seller and say, hey, you've got a significant gas leak in your crawl space, and you need to know about this, because I don't want, we don't say the word. I know I dress like an alarmist inspector, but we try not to use alarmist words like explode or death or die or anything. But if mortal harm can come of the occupants of the house, we're going to take action to make sure that nothing happens. And we might turn gas off, or we might do something at that time. But 9 times out of 10, we're just going to turn something off, and then turn a breaker off, and then let the electrician figure out why that circuit's not doing what it's supposed to do, or turn the valve off. But I'm going to ask the seller's permission first. I'm not just going to do it. I'm going to say, hey, there's this thing. I turned it on. It's leaking everywhere. I turned it off. It doesn't seem to be turning off. Are you okay if I go ahead and turn off the water? Yes. So that's kind of the extent of us like fixing something by our rules. And I think kind of what you're getting at is, does the inspector maybe fix stuff like later on or after the fact? So the way that our rules are written, we cannot accept any money for fixing a house, and that's back in the 70s when inspectors were first licensed by the state, it was the handyman that was going in there and sort of saying, all right, well, here's all this stuff I found, and I'll be back next week to fix it. And then, you can pay me X amount of dollars. And it's like, well, hold on. This isn't really, that's not how this should go. Because then he's finding stuff that, yeah. So it's like, no. They need to be two totally separate people. So, we run a company a little bit different. Our company motto is do the right thing, always tell the truth, and help others. And everybody's human and we make mistakes, but we miss something, and it's a very rare occasion, but if we miss something and the buyers move in and they say, hey, we moved in and there's this thing here, I need you, like we had one where they put in a new granite countertop over a kitchen ledge, like a window, and the new granite countertop like covered up the lock to this window, so the window wouldn't open and close, like it covered over it, and the lock was just buried by this. So they called and said, hey, your guy missed this, like, what are you going to do about it? And so I went out there and I like figured it out and got the lock off and put a different lock on. And so I did it, but I didn't accept any money for that. We just stepped up and fixed it.
You just did the right thing, like your motto says.
Yeah. But yeah, we can't like sort of go back and say, 3 months after they've moved in and say, hey, I pulled up your report and all that stuff that I found. You mind if I come back and fix that next week for X amount of dollars? Like, no, that's a big no-no. Yeah,
for sure. And I feel like your guys have to know so much stuff about so many things that's why they need to have people that they can refer to be the expert. Because like that air conditioning guy has no idea what's going on over here with the light switch or whatever, but he's like, air conditioning, I know all the air conditioning things, and that guy can go deep because he knows all the air conditioning things because he's a specialist. And I think that's why it's important to have somebody like, the general home inspector that just says, here's a little bit of stuff about everything. Now, these are the things that look like they could be problems. Go find the expert for those things and get more information. I think that's always a better way to protect the buyer's best interest for sure.
Yeah, like just example, there's a YouTube video that we posted on, like I post a lot of fun stuff, that, but the foundation company had just came in on a pier and beam house, put in new block and pad, replaced wood, and did all this stuff, but yet you flush the toilet and the toilet's still leaking right into the crawl space, and that's what caused the original damage to begin with. So it's like the foundation guy is not a plumber, the plumber is not a foundation guy, right? They don't cross paths.
Yeah.
So but we have to go in there and we have to know all the plumbing codes, we have to know electrical codes, we have to know structural and the whole kit and caboodle, and then we do that performance test on the house on all across the board, where the electrician, well, I'm only here to look at your electrical problem, or the plumber's like, hey, I'm only here to look at your plumbing issue. But all of it working together in harmony is like what makes it all go round and round.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, those two things need to work in harmony all the time. Foundation and plumbing are like, they're like married, those two things.
Yeah, anything, and people always ask me like, what's the most important thing to pay attention to? And the quick answer is water. Anything that's water related in any way, you can talk to an architect, an engineer, a foundation guy, or whatever. If something has to do with water, that's cause and effect. And so it could be a sewer line, it could be a water line that's leaking, it could be gutters, it could be drainage, it could be anything having to do with water in any way is going to create more damage, and that's a big deal. So definitely always focus on anything having to do with water.
Yeah.
Now, are there some things in the house you can't inspect, like mold?
So correct. So the it's a different license. So we do test for mold. So we have a lab up in Denton that we can pull samples. And so we've got certified people that are, certified to do indoor air quality and mold. But a regular inspector is not allowed to say the word mold because they're not licensed in it. So that's where, since, we are, and I have a lab, I can say it, but most inspectors cannot say the word mold. Same thing for termites. So if you're not licensed by the Texas Department of Agriculture to be a pest control person, you're not supposed to say the word termite. You're supposed to say, possible wood destroying organism. It's like, the long explanation of it.
Potato.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, but I can't say that word because I'm not licensed to say that word. So microbial organic growth or dark foreign substance is what an inspector would say. You and I would say mold.
We got to check for lead-based paint.
Yeah.
Check for lead-based.
So that's there's like a little X-ray machine that's out there that you can shoot through the wall. So if that's something that somebody's interested in, if the house is pre-1978, it's probably got it. It's probably there. It just when you go to do construction on that house, or you go to renovate or repair, and you're cutting through the wall or anything like that, that's when your contractor needs to be aware that, hey, keeping the indoor air quality safe for occupants of the home is crucial at that time.
Yeah. That makes sense. So, we just kind of hit on a whole bunch of other sorts of inspections, right? So what other things could somebody want an inspection for? So there's the general home inspection that kind of just covers like all the stuff. But then we just learned that there's the pest inspection, there's the lead-based paint inspection. What was the other one that we just said? The mold inspection. What other things might somebody want to get inspected that's not covered in like the normal, regular, generic-y, home inspection?
Yeah, no, great question. So you could do like an engineering report. I'm trying to stick to third party first, and then I'll kind of bring it back to home inspection. So maybe you want an engineer's report, like the inspector says, hey, your foundation, you might want to get it checked out. Well, we can't just defer to a foundation company because they're not licensed by the state, but we have to defer to a structural engineer who is licensed by the state, and they're there to be that like true third party, like, not going to go either way. So the big whammy in real estate, I think, is the sewer line testing. So, and you guys call it a hydrostatic test, but we don't call it that anymore because there's this agreement that the seller has to sign that they don't want to sign that says, whatever damage is caused by this person that tests it, you as the homeowner are liable. And basically it's the same thing that if you have foundation work done, they should do a pre-sewer water test. And then after the foundation work is complete, they should do a sewer water test. And so that's all that it is. But since they put the word hydrostatic on it, then Trek went nuts and their lawyers, and then it kind of stirred up this thing. So if we get a 1960s slab house that we know it has cast iron, we're going to recommend that sewer test. A good agent already knows, like if they've made the offer on this kind of house, they're already teeing up those inspections to happen in conjunction with our inspection. So that way they're already getting those results like that fast. So other types of inspections, the roof inspection, you might want to call out the roofer to say, they just had a hailstorm and I see on the clue report that they had a claim, and yet the roof still looks old, and where'd that money go? So that's kind of one of those, can of worm type of situations. Some other things that can be added on is carbon monoxide testing, so my inspectors, if it is a gas house, we have carbon monoxide that we wear on our side. So that way, if, something is going off, then we can say, hey, there's elevated carbon monoxide in the house. Elevations running like a zip level, kind of like an engineer would do. We're going to do just a base elevations to say today, right now, these are the measurements that I took. We're not structural engineers, but we're just saying, here's the measurements that I have found so that you have reference elevations once you move into the house. 3 years from now, if you see something weird and you have somebody out, you can say, well, here's what it was like the day that I bought it, and this is what it was there. Thermal imaging is another really good one that can be added on. It's not part of the Trek inspection, so it's just one of those things that can be done. But you can, especially right now with the weather, where like if it's raining, that's like the perfect time to do thermal imaging, because you're going to see those little leaks and you're going to see like super cold outside. Okay, well, let me see where the cold air is coming in. Pool inspections is another one that's important. You know, as you know, a pool can be up to, you know, a third of the cost of the house. And so if you've got busted pool lines that are underground, you know, the inspector's not going to see that visually from up top. So having that professional come in and kind of do specific testing on that, if it's an older pool, is a good idea for sure. Let's see, what am I missing? We kind of went through the gamut of everything. HVAC, I think it's a good idea. So it's just probably the number one thing on our reports, because it's Texas, that we want to make sure that once they move into that house, that, you know, your heating and air conditioning system is running tip top. And so it's a good time. So in our report, we put like, have it serviced and maintained, check the coolant levels, make sure your Freon is charged appropriately, make sure you're cleaning the inside and outside coils. And if they do all that stuff that we've put in our report and they have a problem, then they can go back to their home warranty company and say, hey, inspector said have it serviced, I had it serviced, here's the bill of health that it passed and you know, at that time, and now it's broken, and so I need you to fix it. So that really protects the homeowner if you do it the right way. But there could be septic systems in place. So there's a septic inspection. There could be property could have a well. So we're going to do water testing, that kind of thing. So, you know, depending on the realtor knows what area they're in on kind of like what types of things they need to be looking out for.
Well, we'd like to hope so.
There's an inspection for everything.
Yeah.
Soil, everything, you name it.
Yeah. We get clients that get on our website and it's just like ordering a pizza. They just add every single topping they can. And we got to call them and say, you don't really need all of that. Like, just why do you want all that? Well, I'm nervous. I want everything. And you're like, no, you don't need everything. Like, what are you worried about? Like, what are your concerns? Let's just start there. And then once we do it, our test, and we kind of put it through our performance test, then we can go kind of push the envelope. But you don't need to do it. And some people are like, nope, I want everything done. And you're like, okay, fine.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so what comes up the most often, or are there things that, you know, generally speaking, here in North Texas, you go out and you do 100 home inspections. What's the thing that probably at least 10 of those houses has? Is there something that's more common than others?
So most people just don't maintain their air conditioning systems. You know, you're supposed to change that filter once a month, and they don't. And so that's, you know, that's the thing that keeps everybody cool, right? Like, I got a hot wife, but I like it when she's cool inside. Like, I don't want her to get hot. But if you don't maintain that, your blower gets dirty. And then your blower on the fins starts to shake and get out of balance. And then the motor goes out prematurely and then, you know, everything just shuts down and stops. So, you know, just little maintenance things. And that's what we're looking for during the inspection, is how well was this home maintained? Did the homeowners really maintain this house, or is it nobody cleaned the gutters in years, or nobody's cleaned all this junk off the roof, and then now it's like just, you know, delaminated shingles and that kind of fun stuff. But so I would say for us, you know, plumbing is crucial, like, because water, anything is what we're really hyper focused on. HVAC in there, and then roof would be in there, just because it's, you know, in Dallas Fort Worth area, you know, we get a lot of hail and we get a lot of, and so that's just one of those things that we want to make sure we're hitting that roof hard, because that's why people's insurance premiums are higher, because we have to replace a lot of roofs on a regular basis. So we're going to make sure that we're going to walk that roof whenever we can, for sure.
It's not if, it's when.
What's that?
So I tell people, it was not if, it's when.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Especially roofs, it's when, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Stephen and I talked about insurance before, and I think that was one of the things that, I mean, it comes up a lot because we're in Texas. I mean, even like today, I know that the people that are listening can't see outside, and we're not seeing it on here, but I'm looking out my window and it is icy, snowy, sleety, disgusting outside, all that stuff hitting the roof, you know. all of it, just wear and tear. Yeah.
And now is the time, and I tell people when we sit down, especially first time buyers, like when it's raining and it's hardest, or it's whatever it's doing is it's coldest, go walk around your house and just walk around the outside of your house. Just what is it doing? Like where's water ponding at, or where is this water going, or what? Because that's when you need to know this stuff, because if you're just inside and you don't pay attention, then like, oh, this has been going on for a while, how come I didn't know? Well, you didn't go outside and look at it.
It's kind of hard to tell somebody to get out in 24-degree weather.
It is, right? It's only us crazy inspectors that think that way, I think.
I mean, that's a good point, though, because I mean, at the worst weather, your house is either going to handle or it's not.
Yeah.
So I understand what it's going to be doing. So it's good.
Yeah.
And I think air conditioners is a good, man, like you said, that's the biggest thing that people are seeing. That's an expensive thing when you do have to fix something, not so much fix it, but if you have to replace it, right? And I think that keeping that in mind, if I'm buying a house, because every once in a while we'll come across somebody and they're like, nah, I don't need it home inspected. My dad is handy or whatever. And they're like, I don't want to spend the couple of $400-500 to get a home inspection, which by the way is money well spent. But man, it's so much more worth it to spend several $100s now than spend several $1,000s later fixing whatever it is.
Proactive
versus reactive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had people say, I've maintained my house, I'm a contractor. They come to find out they're the ones with the 35 pages of stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of like Steph doesn't like to cook when they get home, so it's, it's the same principle.
Yeah.
It's not really maintaining their house, but they seem to think they are. So I always, I can't express how many times I say, get a home inspection. So, and another thing about home inspections that, lenders don't like to see them. We all know that, but it can also be something to where it can also avoid you from getting a loan, because there are some things that have to be repaired before you can even get financing, FHA, VA loans, and they won't, have a bad roof or flooring or whatever the situation is. That can also cause some serious issues later on. So I might as well find out now instead of, 10 days before closing. Next thing you know, your client looks at it and goes, well, why can't we close? Well, we have a lender issue here because that goes back in the contract. The repairs are over 5% of the sales price, or it's a lender required repair and they can't do financing on it. We should have found that out in the beginning.
Mhm.
That goes back to that F word again, fiduciary responsibilities. So
Yeah.
not doing yourself justice by not getting one.
Agreed. Well, and the other thing too is, some people are like, I only need to get it on this kind of house or that kind of house, or whatever, an older house or versus a newer house, or what about new construction? Clayton, do you guys inspect brand new builds?
So we do.
Our brand new house is perfect.
I just went and saw a comedian, and he said during COVID he got, he was a comedian, so like, what am I going to do? He's like, well, I went and became a carpenter for a new construction guy, and he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm over here just putting nails in a steel plate for 8 hours so I can get paid, but I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or not. Like, I don't know what it is. And I'm listening to this guy going, and they're just arguing it. And you got a guy from Venezuela that's arguing a guy from Mexico. And it's like, I don't know why he's cutting all your wires and doing all your stuff. But yes, new construction should be inspected. So we do phase inspection. So before they pour the concrete, we go in there and we check out all the plumbing lines because we can see them. Then we check out just to make sure that the form boards are up correctly, that everything is level, that the cables and the tendons are what the engineer and the designer said that it was going to be that way. There's some crucial things that can happen. And then phase 2 is pre-drywall. So before they put the drywall up, because then you're covering up all the bad work, then we can go in there and kind of take pictures and here you go and show that to the builder and say, hey, we need all this stuff fixed before you just like get it done. But there's a lot of cutting of corners of things, when we went through our lumber shortage and we went through a labor shortage. And so like all of that affects new construction. So for when people think, oh, it's new, there's nothing wrong with it. I always find a couple of beer cans on every job build site that's there. So those guys are partying like when they're building your house. So just saying.
You know what, Clayton, can I tell you when we remodeled my bathroom, now my house was built in the 70s and we remodeled my bathroom in 2021. And when we tore out some of the sheetrock and we removed the old bathtub, there was a beer bottle under there that had been under there since the 70s.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
Always.
Was it still full?
No, it was definitely
No.
empty, but it was a cool little, like, it was like a relic. Like, they don't make Schlitz in that kind of bottle anymore.
Yeah. When we do crawl spaces, you always find those old cans and bottles too in the crawl spaces.
Yeah, so crazy. Okay, but so I think some people's rationale is, well, the city inspector's looking at it and the builder construction manager's looking at it. But really, are either of those people there all day, every day while the actual construction is being done? No.
No. So the city, because everybody always says that, well, the city inspectors inspected it. Well, you got to understand that the city inspector is there. He has a little checklist of like, okay, do you have these requirements? Okay, you do, and I'm out. But he doesn't actually flip a switch or plug or test the outlet, or he just is visually looking to see, does this safety thing there? So in different municipalities have different sets of rules and according to like what they do, but they're never there to do a performance test. They're just there really, at the end of the day, they're trying to protect their utilities. And so they're trying to make sure that, a big deal in new construction is they're going to do that pressure test of the sewer line to make sure that nobody put a beer can down the sewer pipe like when it was being constructed, because we've seen that before. So they're supposed to cap all that. So they're going to go in and do that kind of what you guys would call a hydrostatic test to make sure that when the trencher was cutting in his trenches for the foundation, that he didn't cut through one of those sewer lines. And so they don't want their utilities to be wasted on this, and the same thing with the power company. So if it has to do with water and electric, yeah, the city's heavily involved. But when it comes to framing and roofing or AC, not really. There's just very little standards there. So definitely have to get that stuff checked out.
Yeah. Well, and you know what, on a new home too, here's the other thing that I hear, and I don't know, Stephen, if you hear this too, where people will say, I'm not going to get an inspection before I buy it because it comes with a 1-year warranty. So I'll get an inspection 11 months after I've been living here so that I can have a list of things to turn in on a warranty claim. I don't know. It seems very backwards to me, but let's hear what you guys hear.
Yeah, Steve, what do you got?
Remember when it was a 10-year warranty? When the builders had 10-year warranty?
The 10-year structural, but most of them have, that like 1 year sort of like bumper to bumper almost kind of warranty. And people are like, just get it fixed in.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've heard both ways. Oh, it's got a 10-year, it's got a 1 year. Oh, don't worry about it. They think it's just, like a car warranty. You just turn it in and fix everything, or it's a recall or something. They don't really realize. In my experience, I've seen more problems with new homes than I have in existing homes. I'm sure you can vouch for that too, because a lot of times they flip flop the hot and cold, the faucets. I've seen them cut corners, like you said. I was in a brand new home the other day. When we went to go up the stairs, I put my hand on the railing came off. So is that too? And so because it wasn't screwed into the stud. And so it's exactly it. It's just because it's new doesn't mean it's new. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And it's like you said, as long as it looks like it looks decent, it's gonna pass. And so, what are the building inspectors there for? Just make sure it's built the code. Yeah, it looks good. I'm out of here. They're not going through the crawl space. They're not going underneath the house. They're not going into the attic. They're not doing any of that stuff. They're not taking pictures of anything. Just looking at it and getting a paycheck going home. That's all they care about. And so that's why I strongly, and I've heard that all those, people saying that it's already taken care of, or they've already had their final walkthrough with the foreman. What does that mean? He's there to sell the house. What does he care? Like he's going to say, oh, by the way, we really messed up this part. The guy's a foreman of a building. You think he's going to admit any fault? And so it's always good to have a third party on that to also see the outside per se, looking in to make sure that everything is built properly. At the house, I've seen it to where new homes, even the bedrooms were squared off. You're going, does that look right? And if you look a little bit to the left, oh, that's good. But that's not the way it should be. And so, it's crazy some of the stuff you find, but it's good that you do that so you can at least maybe get it fixed before the closing.
Yeah.
I don't guarantee it will be fixed before the closing, but at least you can ask.
I tell people, so we sell it as a package. So if you want like the pre-pour, the pre-drywall, the when it's finished, and then the 11th month warranty, we'll sell it all as one package. And some people do decide, they're like, no, I'm going to go for that 11th month warranty because that's cheaper and I don't have to have all those inspections. And the way I approach it is, well, do you want to live with the problem? Do you want to move into your house and then know that, hey, they didn't connect this pipe in the wall, and then now there's water pouring in? Well, now they got to go cut open that wall, or they got to remove all these bricks. And then you have people in your house, you have all this construction debris and all this stuff going on while you're living there. And it just makes it that much more chaotic. Or, have us in there right before you do that walkthrough. So that way you can play our video. I haven't talked about that, or show the home inspection report to that superintendent to say, hey, why is the dryer vent expelling right next to the HVAC system? That's just going to clog up the HVAC system. You guys put this in the wrong spot. Oh, well, we got to remove bricks and we got to open the wall and we need to move all that. We'll do that before you move in, so that way you don't have to deal with the mess. But then we approach it when we have that 11th month warranty. We'll give our homeowners a little pad of paper and say, it says foundation, roof, plumbing, electrical, HVAC. If you see something going on, keep this like as a journal in your kitchen. And then when that 11th month warranty comes around, then we can come back, go through all this stuff, because that's your last time for the builder to fix anything. And yes, in Texas, all builders are going to have that 10-year structural, deal, but that's the last moment to get that stuff done. So definitely don't skip that 11th month warranty. But if you're thinking about skipping that new inspection, it's like, well, do you want to live with the possibility of problems? Because that's the worst, is when they've got to open walls up and create dust and construction debris, and then you're living there. You don't have a choice. And so that makes it not fun.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think we should be aware of is warranty means protection, doesn't mean guarantee.
Oh, right.
So when something happens, they're trying to protect you from it going any worse. I've read some warranties where it will say, we'll fix the damage, but you have to pay for the repairs. You have to pay for the labor, but we'll pay for the materials. You got to read it very carefully. So it's not a guarantee at that point in time. So
For sure. And like we just said, it sounds like they don't make them like they used to. All right. Well, so Clayton, you mentioned something in that last section, and you said, watch our video. So let me just ask you real quick, because, being our guest on the show today and everything, there's a lot of home inspectors out there, and it sounds like they all have some things that they all have to do because they have to follow some specific guidelines from the state and all those kinds of things. But what is it that makes Green Scene home inspection different? What is it that you guys do that makes you cooler than everybody else?
Yes, so great question. So we're kind of home of the video inspection. So when the inspector's taking a picture of all that stuff, most good inspectors are going to sit down and explain all of that to the client. But we go ahead and make a video of that moment. So that way, if the buyer can't make it or the agent can't make it, then they can go back and watch that video. So it's every picture that the inspector's taken, and he's narrating each photo so that you can then go back and watch that. It's helpful for first-time home buyers, because then, like, once they move in, it kind of becomes a honey-do list of, hey, the inspector told us to do this. It's good for, like, if the parents are kind of helping the kids oversee the first purchase, rather than get that big, long, scary report and the parents freak out, they can watch the video and it kind of calms them down. They understand it. For that big commercial, that 38-plex that we're doing, it's an out-of-country investor. And they speak a different language, and so they can play that video, have it translated to their language, and they don't have to fly into Houston, Texas to figure out what are we saying about that property inspection. So the video is our sort of unique claim to fame, and it really helps homeowners. It really helps agents, because I'm not saying agents are lazy, but there are some agents that would rather watch that 20-30 minute video than having to read that 30-page report, because they're like, I can just watch this video and take notes, and they understand everything in layman's terms. And for new construction, it works because they can play that video for the builder, and the builder's like, oh, he's talking about that stud right there where we missed these nails, right? Instead of just, if you were to try to write that out, it's like, on the north wall, on the 6th stud over, and it becomes very like, okay, what is he talking about here? Versus, like, if I just took a picture and showed you, then you understand it. So that's the big thing that sets us apart from any other company out there.
I love that. And I've been a party to that in the past through your company, and I think it's great because it's also, like you said, you're not an alarmist, and the inspector's like, and here's where I did the thing, and this is what the deal is with that. And they're just not, that it's not nearly as scary when someone's talking you through it.
Yeah. So it's really narrating the process of the inspection. So it's like, hey, we're in this bathroom, I'm flushing these toilets, I'm running the shower. This needs caulking right here in this one spot, and this this toilet was a little bit loose and you need some caulking around that. So it's just, we are the ambassador to someone's future home, where they're going to have their Thanksgiving, they're going to have their Christmas, they're going to have their birthday parties, and that's an honor for us to be able to introduce them to this future place. And when I train new inspectors, I try to tell them, if we do our job, then nobody dies. And if we do our job correctly, nobody dies. And you might think, oh, well, that's kind of a stupid thing to say, but it's true. If we do things correctly, we're saving lives and we're helping people without even them knowing that we just helped them, because we pointed this thing out that could have been bad, but we fixed it to make sure that it didn't get that bad.
Yeah. All right. Well, Stephen, do you have anything else you want to cover when we're talking about home inspections today? Or are you feeling like we got a lot of good ground covered? I thought we got a lot of good stuff.
I think we're drinking out of a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
We got a lot of good information, a lot of myth busters, which was good. And I think a lot of things that I heard that kind of came to light as well. And, can definitely help out during transactions. And also just knowing that there's an inspector and what the inspectors are all about. I think that can also make you feel more comfortable of why we need to get an inspection so bad. So just totally reinforcement in my mind.
Absolutely. 100%. Well, Clayton, when we get this podcast episode posted, we're going to tag all of your stuff. So make sure to get me all of that so we can get you some exposure in case somebody ever needs to reach out to Clayton Bailey with Green Scene Home Inspections. You guys will know right where to find him and how to get in touch and ask questions and book home inspections. Because, if you're buying a house, you need one, right?
Absolutely.
Need a home inspection. All right. Well, guys, I am going to wrap it up. Clayton, was there anything else that I should have asked you before we get out of here?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate both of your insights, and we had some good conversations. And like Stephen said, it's a lot. It's like drinking from a fire hydrant. So that's why you got the crazy suit, because there's a lot going on in the home inspection world. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if you're out there listening, join us next time on the Estate of Reality podcast, where we talk about all the real reality of the real estate profession. Y'all have a great night.
Thank you.